Hello everyone, welcome to the course on simulating fluid flows using Python. I hope you all are doing good despite the rising corona cases, and please stay safe as we go through this course. First of all, I would really like to thank these people who have taken an extra step towards supporting this channel, and it really means a lot to me. And of course, whoever else has been joined, I'm really grateful to you as well. I hope that you would enjoy learning through this channel. So in the past two videos, we have looked at how we can use the central differencing scheme in order to solve steady one-dimensional convection diffusion problem. And in the lecture today, we are going to shift our attention to the upwind scheme. And this is because we had seen that the central differencing scheme, it was failing in certain aspects, especially if the Peclet number was high, or physically it meant that when the convection was relatively larger than the diffusion, or it was more dominant than the diffusion process, then the central differencing was struggling. So to overcome that, we would introduce the upwind scheme in the lecture today, and we would also see how we can implement the same scheme in the steady 1D convection diffusion scenario. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. So we'll look at the case of steady one-dimensional convection diffusion problem with constant properties, and we have seen that if the variable phi has a convective term and a diffusive term, then the governing equation for that case can be written in this form, where the gamma is diffusivity, the rho is the density, and the u is a constant velocity. And once we employ our grid system that we had introduced 2 lectures ago, and of course that we have been sticking to such kind of grid systems all throughout this course actually. So we saw that in order to solve these kind of problems using finite volume methods, we have to integrate the governing equation and do some manipulations on it. So after applying the Gauss divergence theorem and integrating the governing equation, we saw that we arrived at an equation that looks of this form. So until this point, there are actually no assumptions involved here. We are still dealing in terms of raw properties, such as the properties that are evaluated at the east and west faces. Following this, we implied the central differencing scheme, and we considered that actually the property of the phi, it's behaving piecewise linear, and that is equivalent to the central differencing scheme. And based on that, we calculate the derivatives as these forms. And because there was a linear variation, we said that the phi could be represented in these forms over here. So this is some sort of a recap as to what we were doing behind the scenes when we were using the central differencing scheme. And based on this, we had the following observations. So we saw that the central differencing scheme, like in the first part of this course, we saw that it was totally fine for pure conduction or pure diffusion problems. When there was no convection, there was no restriction as to when the central differencing is valid or not. So it was totally fine as to whether you can use the central differencing or not. The answer was yes. So from this, we can conclude that the diffusion component of the convection diffusion was fine with the central differencing scheme. And the problem arises when we try to handle the convection term using the central differencing scheme. So in that case, we actually need to understand how we can evaluate phi at the control volume faces. So just to go back, we see that the diffusion terms need the gradients of the phi, whereas the convection terms need the absolute value of the phi at the control volume faces. Therefore, in order to understand how to overcome this convection problem, we have to understand how to evaluate the phi itself. So the gradients were okay, they were not bad, they were not creating issues at least, but we have to see how to get the phi correctly, because to use the average value of phi at the grid points in order to estimate the control volume property, the phase property, that was not working fine, because that was what we were doing in the central differencing, and therefore we have to look at something else. So that's what we would look today, and one of the very simple remedies is actually the upwind scheme. So if you have used certain CFD packages, for example, ANSYS Fluent, you might have seen or you might have recalled seeing upwind scheme somewhere in the solver properties. So that shows that upwind is actually quite a popular scheme, and we would see that it works quite well. So it justifies as to why it is popular. So we'll see what the scheme really is and how we would implement in this particular problem. So before we jump into the upwind scheme, I want to make a few observations that we obtained using the central differencing scheme, and which I showed a couple of lectures ago as well. So this is the case where we had the left boundary maintained at a temperature of 1 or a phi of 1, and the right boundary maintained at a phi of 0 or a temperature of 0 in this case. We saw that when the flow was going from left to right, we saw that a lot of points here, they were actually at the same value as that of the left boundary. So if the flow is from left to right, the dominance of the left boundary node is much more in the domain. As you can see here, that almost until 0.9, every value is 1. So for a moment, if I imagine that this is point capital P, this is point capital E, that is the east node point, then my control volume phase would be this particular point at the center, correct? So if the flow is from left to right, we can see that the value here, that is the value at 0.5, if you estimate it as the average of 0 and 1, which is 0.5, that would lie somewhere in the center, that would be highly incorrect. So that is the fundamental idea behind the upwind scheme, that the value that you want to estimate at the center, which is the control volume phase, we use that as an upstream point. So in this case, we can see that the value of t at x equals to 0.5, this is predicted very well by the value of the point, the capital P, or the upstream point, because the flow is from left to right. And this also holds true when we reverse the flow direction. So now in this case, when the flow is from right to left, the upstream point is the right boundary, the downstream point is the left boundary, and therefore at x equals to 0.5, we see that, this is just from the observations, we see that the value of t at x equals to 0.5 is the same as the right boundary, or in other words, the upstream value. So if you have understood what I'm trying to say here, you have pretty much guessed what the upwinding scheme is, because it is based on these observations only. So to put it a little bit more mathematically, so in order to understand how we evaluate the phi at these small e and small w, that are the control volume phases, so first of all, we don't change the gradients. So for here, we assume that the lines are still, or the variation of phi is still linear for the gradients. But for the evaluation of phi at small e and phi at small w, so let's first consider at small e. So we say that phi at small e, it would be phi at capital P. So you can imagine that this is x equals to 0, this is x equals to 1. So we are saying that when the flow is from left to right, that is in the positive direction, the phi at small e is the same as phi at capital P. That is the upwind point or the upstream point. So that is what the core of this upwind scheme is. And similarly, when the flow is from right to left, that is the magnitude of u is less than 0, then the value of phi at small e, it simply takes the value of phi at capital E. So this is again based on these observations. So if you're finding difficulty understanding the mathematical expressions that I'm showing on the screen here, you can always go back to the observations that from which we made these mathematical justifications. I hope you would be able to understand that. And on the similar manner, when we look at phi at small w, so now if I want to evaluate this, you can consider the capital W at x equals to 0 and capital P at x equals to 1. So when the flow is in the positive direction, that is from left to right, the value at small w, it would be taken the same as the value at capital W. And similarly, if the u is less than 0, phi at small w would be phi at capital P. So in any case, the value at the control volume phase would be taken the same value as that of upstream point. So all you have to do is look at the flow direction, look at the phase that you want to make the value estimate, and just look at the upwind point, immediate upwind point that is to it, and just equate the two. So that is the whole idea of the upwind scheme. So now, having understood how to write the phi at small e and phi at small w, and we already had the gradients, now let us plug it back into the equation that we had obtained after integrating the governing equation. So let us see how that happens. So we had this particular equation on the top that we looked at a couple of slides back. So now we'll assume that the first case is when the u is greater than 0, and for the convenience I'll also assume that we have constant cross-sectional area. So this just makes the math a little bit simpler here, but you can also do it for a variable cross-sectional area. So if I have a constant cross-section area, you can just imagine that all the a in the equation, they just cancel out. And what we have, or what we would have after substituting for phi at small e from the previous slide, if the u is greater than 0, that is phi at capital P, and for phi at small w, I would substitute phi at capital W. So when we plug those in, we get from phi e, we get phi capital P, and similarly for phi at small w, we get phi capital W. And here I have write f of small e, that basically just takes care of rho into u at small e. And similarly f of w, it implies the rho into u at w. So remember, f is the strength of convection just like before, but to give you a more general expression, I'm including these subscript both in the f and in the d. And you would see that when it's the case of a uniform grid, they would all be the same. So on the right hand side, it is basically the same expression that you had obtained for the central differencing scheme, and the expression on the left is what has changed. And now if you rearrange this equation, you can obtain something of this particular form here. So basically I'm just trying to write this equation in AP phi p equals to AW phi w plus AE phi e. So this is the case when u is greater than 0, but of course u could be as well less than 0. So let us see how the governing equation or the discretized equation changes. So for that particular case, we see that we have to substitute for phi at small e as phi at capital E, and similarly phi at small w, that would become phi at capital P, and everything else would be the same. So between this particular equation and this equation, only the phi values are changed, the rest of things are as it is. And now when we rearrange this equation, you can arrive at this particular equation. So you don't have to remember it for now, because we would look at the more general expression, because there might be multiple cases. For example, when you are in 3D, there could be u, v and w, the three components of velocity, and either of them could be greater or less than 0. So there would be actually 8 different cases. So you don't really have to remember the discretized equation for all these cases. We have a general expression for that, fortunately. So let us look at that now. So if I want to compile these two equations together, so I have just written the equations from the previous slide for u greater than 0 and u less than 0. So now if I want to put them in a one general expression, what we typically do is, so if I look at this particular coefficient of phi w, in these two cases, we see that when u is greater than 0, it is dw plus fw, and if u is less than 0, it becomes dw. So in general, AW is written as dW because it appears in both the equation, plus maximum of FW and 0. So this function over here, it calculates whichever is the maximum between FW and 0. So let us imagine if U is greater than 0. So if U is greater than 0, FW is rho into UW. And because rho is always a positive quantity and now UW is a positive quantity, therefore FW is greater than 0. And this whole term over here, that is maximum of FW comma 0, this simply reduces to FW and we recover this dW plus FW. I hope that makes sense. And similarly, if U is less than 0, we have FW as some negative entity this time because rho into U would be less than 0. And the maximum of a negative quantity and 0 is 0. So if the U is less than 0, we recovered simply the dW. And you can try to cross verify this for the coefficient AE as well. I hope that I haven't made any algebraic mistakes, so you can double check that. So now we have written the general expressions for AW and AE, and the general expression for AP can actually be written as AW plus AE, just like before, plus FE minus FW. So you might wonder why I'm adding this FE minus FW, and you would see that this actually makes sense when you write this general expression, and nothing else but FE minus FW. If this is a case of constant velocity, this would actually be 0 because from continuity we know that what the flow is going from the left side, it would come out from the right side. So the row U at the west face, it would be the same as the east face. So this is nothing but simply writing AP equals to AW plus AE, but we are trying to write a more general expression, and this actually holds true for both the cases individually as well. So that is why we are adding this FE minus FW term. So I hope that with this discussion, you are able to get some insight about how to use the central differencing scheme. In the next lecture, we would look at how we can modify our existing code for the central differencing scheme, and we can arrive at the upwind scheme. And we'll also see whether the upwind scheme actually holds true or holds good for high value of Piclet number, which was really the concern, or which was really the cause for introducing this scheme in the first place. In the meantime, I would highly recommend that you try to write the central differencing code if you haven't done so yet, and then try to simply modify these coefficients. That's the only thing that is being changing in between the two codes. There are no changes whatsoever. So you would see even in my codes, only these 3 lines, the coefficients, that is where we have to just make these slight modifications as per the discussion that we have today. I hope that you would do this, because this would be a superb learning process, and you would be seeing for yourself how this particular scheme, which is seemingly so simple and so elegant, that it makes the solutions for high Piclet number much more feasible. So we would look at that in the next lecture. Until then, please stay safe and take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.